The crying started before the plane had even leveled in the sky. A sharp, desperate wail that cut through the cabin like a knife. It was baby Miguel, 9 months old, and no one, absolutely no one could ignore the sound. In business class, where everyone acted too important to tolerate anything human, the discomfort was obvious. Eye rolls, loud sighs, annoyed looks. And right in the middle of all that judgment sat Eduardo Vasquez, a businessman used to fixing problems with a phone call. Except this one. His face was red. Embarrassment, exhaustion, helplessness. "Please, son, just a minute," he whispered, desperate. But Miguel didn't want a minute. He wanted to scream everything out at once. The flight attendant approached for the 3rd time, doing her best to keep a professional smile. "Mr. Vasquez, maybe he's cold. Should I bring another blanket?" "I already tried that," Eduardo nodded, nearly defeated. Around him, passengers rolled their eyes. One man turned up his headphones. A lady grumbled, "Untrained baby, this didn't exist in my time." Eduardo felt that like a punch. He wasn't weak. He wasn't irresponsible. He just didn't know what else to do. And as if the universe wanted to humiliate him a little more, the attendant returned. "Sir, we'll need to move you to the back of the plane. There have been complaints." Eduardo inhaled deeply, trying not to show how much that sentence hurt. Carrying his screaming baby, he walked down the aisle while dozens of eyes followed his defeat. In economy class, the chaos was even worse. Miguel's crying triggered other babies to cry too. It became a chorus of despair. Eduardo leaned against the back wall of the aircraft, exhausted. I really don't know what else to do." Then, something completely unexpected happened. From one of the last rows, where the seats barely reclined, a tiny boy, no older than 6, slowly stood up. Small, skinny, wearing simple clothes and worn-out shoes, but with a calm, steady look that didn't match his age at all. He walked down the aisle like this was completely normal. He stopped right in front of Eduardo, lifted his little face, and said in the sweetest, most confident voice, "Sir, I can help your baby." Eduardo blinked, stunned. "What? You can help? How?" The boy shrugged, as if offering something obvious. "I know how to make babies stop crying. I do it with my little sister." Eduardo, at rock bottom with no pride left to protect, exhaled. "All right, you can try." And right there, in the middle of a crowded plane, with a desperate father and a screaming baby, a 6-year-old boy took the first step towards changing everything. Eduardo hesitated for a second, not because he didn't want help, he was desperate for it, but because the idea of a 6-year-old fixing something que ele médico, comissários e meio avião não conseguiram, parecia impossível. But the little boy didn't wait for permission. With tiny but confident steps, he stretched out his arms. "Can I hold him?" Eduardo swallowed hard. Handing his baby to a stranger already felt scary. Handing him to a child felt borderline insane. But Miguel's cries were so intense, so painful, so overwhelming. Eduardo finally nodded. "All right, but be careful, okay?" The boy gave a tiny smile, calm, almost grown up. "Don't worry, I hold my sister all the time." He placed his small hands under Miguel's arms and, com uma delicadeza inacreditável para alguém tão pequeno, pulled the baby close to his chest. Miguel screamed for a few more seconds. Then, something shifted. The boy tilted Miguel slightly, resting his cheek against his shoulder, a natural, instinctive position. Then he began doing something no adult had thought of. Soft little circles on Miguel's back, slow, rhythmic, always in the exact same spot. And then he whispered, "Shh, it's okay. You are safe. I know it hurts. I know." Eduardo froze. The passengers froze. Even the flight attendants froze. Because Miguel's cries were dropping, not stopping, not yet, but lowering, softening, turning from desperation into tired, shaky whimpers. Eduardo stared. What are you doing?" The boy didn't look up. He was focused, serious, like a little doctor performing a delicate procedure. "His tummy hurts," the boy said simply. "His tummy? Yes, my sister cries like this when the air gets stuck here." He tapped his own belly. Eduardo blinked. "You know about that? I help my mom. She works all day, so I stay with my sister. She cries a lot." The boy adjusted Miguel again, this time laying him gently across his forearm, belly down, head supported by his small hand, a position Eduardo had never even seen before. Miguel suddenly let out a long, shaky breath. Then, silence. Real silence. Not one passenger dared breathe. A couple murmured, "My God." Someone clapped softly. Eduardo felt his knees weaken. He stopped crying. "Yes," the boy said, like it was obvious. "Now the pain is leaving."
Could feel tears burning behind his eyes. This little boy, this tiny stranger, had done what no adult on that plane could. "What's your name?" Eduardo whispered. The boy hesitated for the first time. He shifted Miguel to his other arm. "Gabriel." Of course it was. An angelic little boy. Quiet, humble, soft-spoken, and he had just saved Eduardo from the worst moment of his life. "Gabriel, thank you." The boy shrugged, embarrassed. "It's okay. He just needed someone who knows the pain." Eduardo looked at him, confused. "Knows the pain?" Gabriel nodded. "Sometimes my tummy hurts too, when we don't have much food." Eduardo's heart dropped. And in that instant, he understood. This wasn't just a child who knew how to calm babies. This was a child who knew hardship. Too much hardship. And this moment, this tiny, magical moment, was only the beginning. For a moment, Eduardo forgot they were on a plane, forgot the passengers, forgot the embarrassment. All he could see was that little boy, Gabriel, holding Miguel with a tenderness that adults rarely had. The flight attendant approached slowly, almost in disbelief. "Is he really calm now?" Gabriel nodded proudly, still rocking the baby in tiny, steady movements. "See, he's sleepy now." Eduardo placed a hand on his chest. His heart was hammering. "Gabriel, where did you learn to do all this?" The boy didn't hesitate. He answered with the same honesty children have before the world teaches them to hide things. "My mom works 2 jobs. She leaves early, comes back late. So I take care of my sister." Eduardo felt a sting of guilt, the kind that comes from realizing you've been surviving on privilege without even noticing. "How old is your sister?" 2. He said it casually, like any child talking about a favorite toy. But for Eduardo, it hit like a punch. A 6-year-old caring for a 2-year-old while the mother worked non-stop. Where was the father? Who taught him all this? Who helped him when he cried? Before Eduardo could ask, Gabriel continued. "She cries a lot when she's hungry or when her tummy hurts. I learned what helps." He gave Miguel a gentle little pat. He was hurting too. There was no bitterness in his voice, no shame, just facts, the kind a child should never need to understand so well. Then, Gabriel added softly as if afraid someone might get mad, "Sometimes I give my food to her because she's smaller." Eduardo's throat closed. He felt something shift inside him, something heavy, emotional, almost painful. This wasn't just a helpful child. This was a child surviving a life no 6-year-old should. "Where's your mom now?" Eduardo asked gently. Gabriel blinked. "At work." "And your dad?" Gabriel lowered his eyes. "He left before my sister was born." The plane vibrated slightly with turbulence, but the real tremor was inside Eduardo's chest. He had money. He had comfort. He had more resources than he ever admitted. And yet this child, this tiny angel, had more emotional strength than half the adults he knew. Then Gabriel looked up, hesitant. "Sir, can I stay with him a little longer? I think he likes being held." Eduardo nodded quickly, almost too quickly. "Of course, sweetheart. Stay as long as you want." Passengers began whispering. "That little boy is incredible. He calmed the baby in minutes. Where are his parents?" Eduardo suddenly felt protective, deeply protective, as if he needed to shield Gabriel from every stare, every comment, every judgment. And then he made a decision, a quiet, internal decision that hit him with the force of lightning. He needed to know more about this child. He needed to understand his life. He needed to do something. Because fate hadn't put Gabriel on that plane by accident. No, Eduardo was sure of it now. This meeting was meant to change something. Maybe everything. And it would all start the moment they landed. For the rest of the flight, Gabriel didn't leave Miguel's side. It was almost surreal, a 6-year-old doing what adults couldn't. He held the baby with the gentle confidence of someone who'd had to grow up too fast. Eduardo stayed close, watching every small gesture. The way he hummed softly, the way he rocked his body in a natural rhythm, the way Miguel lay peacefully against him, as if he had found the one person on the plane who understood him. At one point, Gabriel looked up shyly. "He likes when people sing. My sister sleeps faster that way." Eduardo nodded, his voice almost breaking. "You're amazing, Gabriel. Truly." Gabriel lowered his head, embarrassed. No one had ever called him that. As the plane began to descend, the captain's voice filled the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing shortly." Passengers adjusted their belts, screens turned off, and the cabin dimmed. But all Eduardo could focus on was one thing. He didn't want to lose Gabriel in the crowd. When the wheels touched the ground, Miguel was asleep, deeply, peacefully, still resting on Gabriel's small shoulder. The flight attendants were stunned. One whispered to Eduardo, "Where did this boy come from?" Eduardo didn't know how to answer. He didn't know how to explain this miracle either. As people began to disembark, Gabriel gently handed Miguel back to Eduardo, careful not to wake him. "He'll sleep more later," the boy said softly. "Gabriel," Eduardo whispered, "you really helped me. I don't even know how to thank you." Gabriel shrugged with innocent honesty. "You don't need to. I just helped because I know what it feels like." Eduardo frowned. "Feels like what?" Gabriel looked down at his shoes. "Being scared and crying and no one knowing what to do." Those words hit Eduardo harder than turbulence ever could. Then Gabriel stepped back toward the crowd, clutching his little backpack, torn, dirty, almost empty. He looked like a child disappearing into the world again, unnoticed, unseen, unprotected. And Eduardo felt panic rise inside him. He couldn't just let Gabriel walk away. Not after what he'd done, not after what he'd shared, not after seeing the truth behind those innocent eyes. "Gabriel, wait!" Eduardo called. The boy turned surprised. "Yes, sir?" Eduardo swallowed. He didn't want to scare him, didn't want to overwhelm him, but he needed to say it. "Can I talk to your mom?" Gabriel blinked. "Why?" Eduardo knelt to be on the boy's level. "Because I want to thank her." A pause. "And because maybe I can help you too, if she lets me." Gabriel hugged his backpack tighter. Not out of fear, but because he wasn't used to anyone offering help. "We don't have much, sir," he murmured, a little ashamed. "My mom gets nervous when people ask questions." Eduardo smiled gently. "Tell her it's just a thank you, nothing else, I promise." Gabriel thought for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll tell her." And just like that, Eduardo knew. His life was about to change, and so was Gabriel's. Eduardo walked beside Gabriel through the crowded terminal, carrying Miguel, still asleep, against his chest. Every step felt heavier, not from the baby, but from the thought twisting inside him. What kind of life did this little boy go back to every day? Gabriel walked quietly, his tiny backpack bouncing against his back, his sneakers slapping softly against the floor. He stayed close, but not too close, like a child used to walking without holding any hand. "My mom is waiting outside. Is she worried?" Eduardo asked gently. Gabriel shook his head. "No, she's always tired. She doesn't have energy to worry." And that alone told Eduardo more than 1,000 details. As they approached the exit, Eduardo spotted a woman standing near the glass doors. Slim, worn-out clothes, hair tied in a messy bun. She looked exhausted in a way that sleep could never fix. When she saw Gabriel, her entire face softened, relief, love, and fear all at once. "Gabriel, mil Dios, where were you? I told you to stay close to the families." But then she froze when she saw Eduardo, a well-dressed man, holding a baby, walking right behind her son. Her posture changed instantly, her eyes sharpened, her body tensed, a mother's instinct. "Gabriel, what happened?" she asked, stepping protectively in front of him. Gabriel grabbed her hand. "Mom, it's okay. I helped him with the baby." The woman blinked, confused. "Helped? Helped him?" Eduardo gave a warm smile. "You must be Gabriel's mother. My name is Eduardo. Your son saved my flight today." She frowned, not sure whether this was praise or danger. Saved your flight? He's just a child. "A child who has more patience than most adults," Eduardo replied gently. He adjusted Miguel in his arms and continued, I don't know how to thank him." Gabriel's mother stiffened, her voice low. "Sir, we don't want trouble. We don't owe anyone anything." Eduardo shook his head quickly. No, not trouble. Gratitude. And maybe I can offer something, if you let me." Her eyes filled with suspicion, not anger, but fear of false promises, fear of getting her hopes up, fear of letting her son believe in something that might vanish tomorrow. "People don't help us, sir," she whispered. "We're invisible." Gabriel tugged her hand again. "Mom, he's nice, really." She looked at her son, then at Eduardo. Inside those tired eyes, Eduardo saw a woman who had carried the world alone for too long. He spoke softly, choosing every word. "I just want to take you both for lunch, nothing more. Let me thank you properly. Gabriel deserves that." The woman hesitated. Her breathing trembled. She wasn't used to this, kindness that asked for nothing. Finally, she nodded. "Lunch. Only lunch." Gabriel grinned, relieved. Eduardo smiled back. And in that fragile, simple agreement, 3 lives quietly shifted toward a future none of them could imagine yet. Eduardo chose the nearest restaurant in the terminal. Nothing fancy, nothing impressive.
Intimidating. He didn't want Gabriel's mom to feel out of place. Just a quiet corner, real food, and a moment to breathe. When they sat down, Eduardo noticed the little things. How Gabriel slid onto the chair without complaining. How he waited for his mother to sit first. How he kept glancing at Miguel, as if still responsible for him. The waiter came with menus. Gabriel's mother didn't open hers. She pushed it back gently. "Just water for me, please?" Eduardo froze. He knew that line. He had heard it from waitresses, cleaners, assistants, people trying not to be a burden. "Please," Eduardo said softly, "order whatever you want. It's on me." She shook her head. "We don't accept charity, sir." Gabriel looked down, embarrassed. Eduardo leaned forward, voice steady. "It's not charity, it's gratitude. Your son saved me today. Let me do something simple in return." She didn't answer. But she didn't stop Gabriel when he opened the menu. Eyes shining at the pictures of food he clearly hadn't seen in a long time. When the food arrived, rice, beans, chicken, fries, Gabriel's eyes widened. He didn't attack the plate. He didn't eat fast. Instead, he cut his chicken into tiny pieces and slid half onto his mother's plate. She whispered, "Gabriel, no." "You didn't eat today," he whispered back. Eduardo felt something break inside him. He looked at the woman, thin, exhausted, refusing food out of fear of owing someone. He looked at Gabriel, 6 years old, but carrying the instincts of a parent. And suddenly, Eduardo wasn't just grateful. He was angry. Angry at a world where a child had to think like that. Angry at the silence Gabriel's mother wore like armor. Angry that the boy who had so much kindness had so few chances. He swallowed and spoke carefully. "What do you do for work?" She stiffened. "Cleaning. Houses, offices, anything." "And Gabriel? He goes to school?" The way she bit her lip told Eduardo the answer before she spoke. "Sometimes." A soft, defeated whisper. Gabriel lowered his fork. "I like school, but I stay with my sister when Mom works." Eduardo leaned back, not judging, absorbing. "Gabriel, what grade are you in?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "Mom says I learn fast anyway." "I believe her." Then he added gently, "Gabriel, do you like reading?" The boy's face lit up like someone had turned on a lamp inside his chest. "Yes, I read the signs at the bus stop, and the magazines people leave at the laundry, and I read books at the library near our house, when it's open." Eduardo froze. A 6-year-old, self-teaching, hungry for knowledge. No support, no structure, no routine, and yet a fire inside him that most adults never had. Eduardo took a breath. He knew what he was about to say could change everything. "Gabriel, what would you say if I helped you study? Really study, every day, in a school that could see how smart you are?" Gabriel blinked, hopeful, scared, confused, all at once. His mother's froze, fork halfway to her lips. "Sir, we can't afford. I didn't ask if you could afford it. I asked if Gabriel deserves it." Silence. A heavy, emotional silence. Gabriel's mother's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. And Gabriel whispered something so soft, Eduardo almost didn't catch it. "I want to learn. I really want to." And Eduardo made a silent promise. This boy would not disappear back into the shadows. Not anymore. Gabriel stared at Eduardo as if he had just offered him the moon. His small hands froze on the edge of the table. His mother's breathing became shallow, the kind of fear that came from too many broken promises in life. Eduardo spoke slowly, carefully, like someone approaching a frightened bird. "I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here to give something." He looked at Gabriel. "A chance. A real one." Gabriel's mother wiped her eyes quickly, trying not to let tears fall. "Sir, people don't offer chances to us. They offer traps." "I understand why you feel that way," he said softly, "but Gabriel deserves more than the life he's been forced to live." She swallowed hard. "Do you think I don't know that?" Her voice cracked. "He's the smartest child I've ever seen. He learns things I never taught him. But I can't give him what he needs. I barely feed us." Gabriel looked up at her, his eyes filled with innocence and guilt. "Mom, you do everything." Eduardo felt something tighten in his chest. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, gentle, respectful, determined. "Let me help. I can sponsor Gabriel's school. Uniform, books, transportation, everything." He turned to the boy. "You'd have a teacher, Gabriel, a real classroom, friends your age, a chance to become whatever you want." Gabriel whispered, "A doctor?" "Yes." "Or a pilot?" "Yes." "Or someone who helps other babies stop crying?" Eduardo smiled. "Especially that." Gabriel's mother's hands trembled, Sir, why my son? Eduardo didn't hesitate. Because your son has something rare. Compassion, intelligence, patience, and no child should have to give away his food so his sister can eat. His voice broke a little. He's a good boy, a special boy, and he deserves a future. Gabriel's mother covered her mouth, holding back a sob. We don't have documents. The father left. We move a lot because I can't pay the rent. I don't even know if a school will accept him. Eduardo reached across the table, not touching her, just offering presents. Then I'll take care of that too. Paperwork, enrollment, everything. She stared at him for a long moment, not with hope, not with fear, but with something deeper. A mother deciding whether to trust the world again. Then finally, she nodded slowly. Not fully, not confidently, but enough. Gabriel gasped softly, a tiny, hopeful breath. Eduardo stood up, exhaled deeply, and extended his hand. Let's do this together. Gabriel jumped from his seat and wrapped his small hand around Eduardo's. His mother didn't move right away. Then, with a shaking breath, she placed her hand on top of theirs. A fragile, trembling, powerful agreement. 3 hands, 3 lives. One decision that would change everything. Eduardo insisted on driving them home, not to pry, not to invade, but because something inside him said he needed to see where Gabriel came from. The world that had shaped such a gentle, brilliant little boy. Gabriel sat beside him in the back seat, Miguel curled against his tiny shoulder, sleeping peacefully. Gabriel stroked the hair with natural affection. He likes me, he said proudly. Eduardo smiled through the rearview mirror. He does. And I like you too. Gabriel giggled softly, a sound that felt too rare for a child his age. When they arrived at the neighborhood, Eduardo felt his chest tighten. The buildings were old, walls cracked and peeling, dogs roamed freely, stores had bars on the windows. Children played barefoot on the sidewalk. It wasn't just poverty. It was neglect. Gabriel pointed to a narrow alley. We live there. Eduardo's heart sank even deeper. Gabriel's mother looked embarrassed, as if apologizing for a life she had never chosen. It's temporary, until I can pay the rent again. Eduardo gently shook his head. You don't need to explain. Life happens. They climbed a small, uneven staircase that led to a one-room apartment. The door barely closed properly. Inside, the room was tiny. A mattress on the floor, a hot plate for cooking, a few bags with clothes, and a crib that looked like it had survived a war. But the space was clean, organized, filled with effort. Gabriel ran inside, proud. This is my home. Eduardo smiled softly. Not in pity, but in admiration. Because despite the hardship, the boy radiated warmth. Then something broke his heart. A small plastic container on the counter with only 2 crackers inside. Gabriel's mother quickly tried to cover it. Eduardo pretended he hadn't seen. He looked around and said, "Where's your sister?" Gabriel pointed to the mattress. A tiny little girl, maybe 2 years old, slept curled up in a blanket, her face peaceful but thin. Gabriel walked over and gently fixed her hair. This is Sophia. She cries more than Miguel. Eduardo's chest tightened. This child, this beautiful, brilliant child, had been raising a toddler while his mother worked endlessly. Gabriel's mother sank into a chair exhausted. Sir, we don't want to take advantage of you. You helped enough today. Eduardo kneeled beside her, speaking with sincerity that surprised him even himself. I'm not helping Gabriel because I feel sorry for him. I'm helping because he deserves more, and because he helped me when he didn't have to, when no one else did. Her eyes filled again. I'm afraid, sir, afraid he'll get used to something good, and then it disappears. Eduardo placed his hand over his heart. I won't disappear. She studied him for a long moment, searching for cracks, lies, selfish motives, anything. But she found none. Then finally, Gabriel walked over, holding Sophia in his arms, tiny and protective. Mom, he's good. 6 simple words, and they shattered the last wall she had. She nodded, hesitant but trusting. Eduardo stood and spoke with new determination. Tomorrow we start. School search, paperwork, everything Gabriel needs. Gabriel's eyes widened with hope too big for his small body. I'm going to school? You are, Eduardo said, smiling gently. And not just any school. He looked around the room again. At the cracked walls, the thin blanket, the empty food container. You are going to the kind of school that will finally see you, Gabriel.
Earlier than he had ever shown up to a business meeting, Gabriel and his mother were standing outside, waiting. Gabriel wore the same little shirt from the day before, carefully washed overnight, still a bit damp at the sleeves. His hair was neat, his backpack zipped tightly. He looked nervous and excited all at once. "Good morning, sir," Gabriel said, hopping once on his toes. Eduardo smiled. "Gabriel, you don't need to call me sir. My name is Eduardo." Gabriel shook his head seriously. "But you helped me. Important people have important names." Eduardo chuckled softly, but the innocence of the words tore at him inside. He opened the car door. "Ready for your first big day?" Gabriel nodded quickly. "I'm ready to learn everything." And he meant it. They drove to one of the best private schools in the area. Tall gates, clean sidewalks, children running in uniforms that cost more than most families' monthly groceries. When Gabriel stepped out of the car, he froze. He had never seen a place like that, not in real life. "Mom," he whispered, squeezing her hand, "it's like TV." Eduardo knelt beside him. "Everything here is just a building, Gabriel. What matters is you. You're the one who'll shine, not the school." Gabriel gave a tiny nod, but his eyes stayed wide with disbelief. Inside the lobby, the receptionist looked at Gabriel and his mother with the kind of polite confusion rich places often reserved for the poor. Eduardo placed a firm hand on Gabriel's shoulder. "We're here for enrollment. This is Gabriel. He'll be joining the first grade." The receptionist glanced at Gabriel again, then at Eduardo's expensive suit, then back at Gabriel's worn-out shoes. She hesitated. "Sir, is he your—" Eduardo's voice sharpened, the protective kind. "He's someone I'm responsible for now. That's all you need to know." The woman straightened immediately. "Of course, let me call the principal." While they waited, a group of children walked past. Clean uniforms, shiny shoes, lunchboxes with cartoon characters. One boy stared openly at Gabriel. Why is he dressed like that? Gabriel froze. His mother stiffened. Eduardo felt anger rise in his chest. Before he could respond, the principal appeared, a gentle, older woman with kind eyes. She crouched down to Gabriel's height, something no one had done except Eduardo. "Hello, Gabriel. I heard you're joining us today." Gabriel blinked. If you want me here?" The principal smiled warmly. "I do, very much." Gabriel relaxed, shoulders dropping just a little. They toured the school, the library, the playground, the music room. Gabriel touched everything with the curiosity of someone seeing color for the first time. But the moment that broke Eduardo came when Gabriel reached the library. He froze. Rows and rows of books, shelves taller than him, stories he could never afford, dreams he had only glimpsed through torn magazines. He whispered, "I can read all of these?" Eduardo's voice cracked. Every single one. Gabriel stepped inside slowly, like sacred ground. He ran his fingers over a shelf of children's books, eyes filling with tears he didn't understand. He said, "I don't want to leave." Eduardo placed a hand on his back. "Then don't. This is your school now." Gabriel turned, hope shining so intensely that it hurt to look at. Really? Really? And in that moment, Eduardo realized something powerful. He wasn't just giving Gabriel a chance. Gabriel was giving him a chance too, a chance to become the kind of man he had forgotten he could be. The first week at the new school was not easy for Gabriel. Some kids smiled at him, some ignored him, and some whispered things they thought he couldn't hear. Why does he talk like that? His clothes look weird. Who brought him here? Every time it happened, Gabriel lowered his head, but he didn't cry. Not once. Because every afternoon, Eduardo picked him up, without fail, and Gabriel would run toward him with the same words. "Guess what I learned today?" Eduardo listened to every detail, every new letter, every new word, every discovery. He loved those moments more than any meeting, any deal, any contract. One day, the teacher called Eduardo. "Mr. Vasquez, I need to talk to you about Gabriel." Eduardo's heart dropped. "Is something wrong?" The teacher shook her head, eyes bright. Something incredible happened. She handed Eduardo a notebook, Gabriel's notebook. Inside, page after page filled with drawings and words, spelled the best he could. And at the very last page, Gabriel had written something that made Eduardo sit down slowly. In shaky handwriting, "Mr. Eduardo is the first grown-up who ever chose me." Eduardo felt the air leave his chest. He knew he had helped Gabriel, but he had never realized how deeply Gabriel had needed someone, anyone, to believe in him. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Gabriel didn't run to the playground. He didn't go to the library.
He asked Eduardo, "Can you come see my class?" So they walked together. When Eduardo stepped inside, all the children turned. Gabriel held his hand tighter and walked straight to the front of the classroom. The teacher nodded gently, giving him permission to speak. The tiny boy looked around the room. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to be brave. "I want to say something." The room fell silent. "I know I'm different." He swallowed. "I know my clothes aren't like yours. I know I don't talk like you." His mother pressed her hand to her mouth. Eduardo's heart pounded. Then Gabriel lifted his chin, and something powerful rose inside him. "But I'm not less than you." Gasps. Silence. Even the teacher froze. Gabriel continued, eyes glowing with determination. "I'm here to learn. I'm here to be someone. And I'm going to be because someone believes in me." He turned to Eduardo. "He believes in me." Eduardo had to blink fast to keep his eyes from overflowing. Gabriel turned back to the kids. "So don't laugh at me. Learn with me." The teacher wiped her eyes. A few students looked down, ashamed. Others nodded quietly. And in that moment, Eduardo realized the truth. Gabriel was not the child he rescued. Gabriel was the child who would change the world, starting with the tiny world of that classroom. That night, on the drive home, Eduardo said softly, "Gabriel, you were very brave today. Gabriel leaned his head on Eduardo's arm the way he had on the plane. I wasn't brave alone. Eduardo swallowed hard. Gabriel, can I ask you something important? The boy looked up, curious. Would you like me to be part of your life, for real? Not just your helper, not just your friend, but family. Gabriel blinked. Like, forever family? If you want that. The boy didn't say a word. He climbed onto Eduardo's lap, wrapped his little arms around his neck, and whispered, I wanted that since the airplane. Eduardo held him tightly, and just like that, the billionaire and the little boy returned to the place where everything had begun. Not the plane, but the moment a man opened his heart and a child dared to trust again. A new life had begun, a family was born, and destiny just smiled.